Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are watching this video. In the yesterday's audio lecture, we discussed about the background and requirement of determination of residential status of various SSCs and how it is important to determine the residential status in order to determine tax incidence. At the same time, various types of residential statuses which are possible for different types of SSCs. For example, in case of individuals and HUF, the possible residential statuses could be resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, and non-resident. These are the three possible residential statuses for individuals and HUF, whereas for all other types of SSCs, whoever they are, be it firm, LLP, AOP, BOI, company, for everybody, there are only two possible residential statuses, that is resident or non-resident. That is the basic understanding we should have in relation to this topic, and section 6, which will tell us how to determine the residential status, finally leads us to these are the possible residential statuses of different types of SSCs. Okay, then we know what is the residential status of a person, so what? So what? That will determine the tax incidence, or we can call that the scope of total income. And depending upon the residential status, different incomes are taxable, different incomes are not taxable, what are taxable, what are not taxable. We will have to discuss that in section 6 and section 5 of Income Tax Act. So both section 6 and section 5 are inseparable one way, because tax incidence is not possible to be understood without knowing the residential status. Residential status is of no use when we don't apply it for the purpose of tax incidence. That is why 5 and 6 are twin sections, we can say. Both are very closely related with each other, both section 5 and section 6. Though sequentially 5 comes before 6 in number terms, but for learning process, logically, we cannot determine the scope of total income or tax incidence without knowing the residential status. So, ideally, section 6 should be first discussed, then we have to go to section 5. That's what we will do in the today's class. Section 6 of Income Tax Act talks about residential status. The incidence of tax on any SSC depends upon his residential status under the Act. Once again, as we discussed yesterday, residential status is not something that is according to any other act. It is only according to Income Tax Act. Only for the purpose of Income Tax Act, these residential statuses will hold good. That does not mean anything else. Anything means anything else. Though somebody cannot take the residential status of Income Tax Act and use it for any other purpose, not possible. It is only for the purpose of Income Tax Act, that's all. Its usage has to be very limited. This has nothing to do with citizenship. This has nothing to do with the rights and obligations of a person towards his country. This has nothing to do with immigration. This has nothing to do with travel from one place to another place. All those things are completely different from residential status. Why residential status? It is only for the purpose of income tax. That's all. And for this purpose, we know particularly individuals are classified into three categories of residential statuses, that is resident and ordinarily resident, then resident but not ordinarily resident, and non-resident. These are the three statuses when we talk about individuals or HUF. Of course, for others, there are two statuses only, either directly resident or non-resident. So this is the summary of this entire residential status. We can say under section 6, broadly, there are two categories of SSCs. First category, individuals or HUF. Second category, all others, everybody else. in the second category. Individual HUF have two basic possibilities, either resident or non-resident. If individual or HUF is non-resident, there is no further checking. Non-resident is non-resident. That is the final answer. That is a residential status. But if an individual is resident, you cannot call that as a residential status. You have to further inquire whether that individual is ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. If he is ordinarily resident, we call him ROR. And if he is not ordinarily resident, we call him RNOR. Non-resident is non-resident. For all other type of SSCs, there is no such classification, only two things directly, either resident or non-resident. That's all. And this is another important point that also we have discussed yesterday. The residential status of an SSC must be ascertained with reference to a previous year. Means what? There is no guarantee that residential status will be same every year. Every year it might change. It must be ascertained with reference to each previous year. A person who is resident and ordinarily resident in 1 year may become a non-resident or may become RNOR in another year or vice versa. Anybody can become anything in any previous year. So, no guarantee that same residential status will hold good for all the years. That is the reason, very important point here to note is, residential status has to be determined for each previous year. So, when we say residential status of an SSC is that of ROR, it is not his permanent. It is not his permanent status. It is only for 1 year. Which 1 year? Previous year. That's all. That is the point to be noted once again. So, this is one more thing as a point of difference, we can say, with citizenship and residential status. Citizenship is long term, in general it is permanent, whereas residential status is not permanent, that is only for a particular previous year which is determined. And that's the point to be noted here in relation to the residential status. Now, these are all the background things that we try to understand in the introductory session yesterday. Now, let us enter into the real sections of how to determine the residential status, starting with individuals. Then we have to move on to HUF. Then we have to move on to all other types of SSCs also. But most important of all, just like in the rates of tax also, here also the residential status of individuals is more important. How to calculate residential status of individuals. Actually, the word using calculate also is not correct. That is why better to use the word determine. How to determine the residential status of individuals is what is very important provision out of this entire discussion on residential status. Let us start with that. Section 6.1, I don't need to remember the subsections. If you can, that is fine. So, if at all you remember, you can remember this. Under section 6.1, an individual is said to be a resident in India in any previous year, naturally. In any previous year, only 1 year only we are calculating residential status. Residential status is always calculated for 1 year, not for many number of years in one shot, not possible. So, for the previous year, what is the residential status of an individual we are determining. While determining, so when a person is called as a resident in India in a previous year, when? If that person satisfies any one of the following conditions. So, very important words here, that is already boldened there. If that person satisfies any one of the following conditions, not necessarily both. One of them is enough. Means either one or two. How many conditions are there? There are 2 conditions here. Be very careful with these conditions. This is the actual provision of section 6.1, which tells us how to determine the residential status of individuals. So, what is this section 6.1 telling us? It is giving us 2 conditions. And when can we call a person to be a resident? When any person satisfies at least one of these 2 conditions. At least one, we said. What if somebody satisfies both, sir? Anyway, he will be resident. One is enough. When both are satisfied, that is double enough. That does not make him double resident. There is only one resident. So, just because one condition is satisfied or both conditions are satisfied, the status is not going to differ. Status is going to be resident. So, what these conditions will tell us? These conditions will tell us whether a person is basically a resident or not. That is a point here to note. So here there is a point to be noted. When a person is called as a resident by satisfying these conditions. Which condition? Any one of the following conditions. What are those conditions? Read them carefully. Condition number 1. He has been in India during the previous year for a total period of 182 days or more. Exactly. Each word has to be remembered in the same way. You cannot create any things. You cannot imagine or dream any new things here. The law is law. What is this saying? What is this 6.1 saying? First condition, condition number 1. So, what condition number 1 is talking about? That person. Who is this person? What is the nature of the SSC? Are we talking about companies and all? No. We are talking about individual SSC. If that individual is in India, means he stayed in India during the previous year. During the previous year, how much time period overall? For a total period of 182 days. And we are talking about a total period of 182 days. Not necessarily continuous period of 182 days. In a previous year, in total, if a person stayed in India for 182 days or more, 182 days is also enough. So greater than or equal to 182 days we can say. So that is not just 182 days. So we can clearly understand this is greater than or equal to 182 days. So this is what we can consider this as 182 days, but greater than or equal to 182 days. Then a person is called as resident automatically if he stayed in India for a period of 182 days or more. Then what about the second condition? If he satisfied the first condition already, let us say, should we check the second condition? What is the use? No need, no time waste. One condition is enough to be satisfied. Any one of the following conditions, if they are satisfied, he is called as resident in India if that person is an individual. So, if any one condition is satisfied, that is enough. If somebody has stayed in India for a period of 182 days or more, then that person is called as a resident. Again, we are not talking about resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident. That comes later. That is additional conditions. Now what we are talking about are basic conditions which tell us whether that person is prima facie a resident or not. Once he is a resident, then only we will check whether he is ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. So basic, first of all we have to check where we are talking about is this area. First we have to check whether a person, an individual is a resident or non-resident. For that purpose we need to check these basic conditions, whether a person has stayed in India for 182 days or more. If yes, resident. If no, directly you cannot say non-resident. You have to go to second condition and check that, because if he satisfies second condition, then also he will be resident even though he does not satisfy first condition. Why? Because once again, out of these two conditions, any one of them is enough to be satisfied in order to call a person as resident in India. First condition is this 182 days. If anybody satisfies, there ends the matter, is a resident. We don't need to check the second condition. What if somebody did not stay for 182 days during the previous year? Directly we cannot come to non-resident. Then we have to check the second condition, that is condition number 2. What is this condition number 2 talking about? That a person has to be in India, means stayed in India during the 4 years immediately preceding the previous year for a period of 365 days or more. This is one point. This is one point we are talking about. That means the stay of that person should be in India during the 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. How much time? For a total period of 365 days or more. And very important, very, very important here is and. And is very important here. We are not talking about or. This is and. And has been in India for a period of 60 days in the previous year. So there are, one way we can say, two conditions within this second condition. Within the second condition, there are two conditions. What are those? Okay, sequence doesn't matter, both have to be satisfied here. Why? Because and is there. Within the second condition, if you further split them into two sub-conditions. Both sub-conditions have to be satisfied because they are separated by the word and. What are those both conditions? First of all, he should be in India for at least 60 days in the previous year. First you should check that. Okay, he stayed in India for 60 days in the previous year. Then, that is not enough. We have to also check whether he stayed for 365 days or more during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. So we have to check total how many years? 5 years. Why? First of all, whether in the previous year that person stayed for 60 days or more or not, we have to check. In the previous year, 60 days. Yes? Okay, done. Then we have to go back further 4 more years. In that 4 more years put together, 4 more years for a total period of, the point used there is total period of 365 days in the 4 years, that is immediately preceding the previous year. If both these sub-conditions are satisfied, then we can say that is condition number 2 is satisfied. If that also is satisfied, then we can say such person is resident. Once again, if anybody has stayed in India for 182 days or more during the previous year, automatically is resident. If not, we have to check the second condition, which has 2 sub-conditions here. In the second condition, what are the 2 sub-conditions? If a person has stayed for 60 days or more during the previous year and stayed in India for more than or equal to 365 days in 4 years immediately preceding the previous year, then such person can be called as resident. So here if you observe this 182, 365, 60, all of them are talking about greater than or equal to. It's not just the number we are talking. Greater than or equal to 182 days, greater than or equal to 365 also, and that is going to be greater than or equal to 60 also. So in all the three cases it is going to be used as greater than or equal to. Greater than or equal to 365, greater than or equal to 60. But the way or the place where we are checking is not same. So greater than or equal to 182 days, in 1 year only directly we will come to know. Whereas 60 is something related to previous year. If anybody stayed in India for at least 60 days, at least once again is greater than or equal to 60 days. Then he has also stayed for greater than or equal to 365 days or more in 4 years immediately preceding the previous year, then such person can be called as resident individual. If a person did not stay for 182 days also in the previous year and he did not stay for 60 days also in the previous year, automatically that person is called as non-resident. So when can we call a person as non-resident? Any person who is less than 182 days, means 181 days somebody has stayed in India. Can we call him non-resident? Answer is no. You cannot call him non-resident because we don't know whether he is satisfying second condition or not. So only by looking at 182 days, we cannot jump to a conclusion that person is a non-resident. We need to look at both the conditions. So when can we call any person as a non-resident? If the individual satisfies any one of the conditions, he is a resident. If, very important, both the above conditions are not satisfied, then he is a non-resident. Means even if one condition on these two is satisfied also, that is enough. Then he can become resident. If both the conditions above are not satisfied, then such individual is called as a non-resident. That is why just by looking at 182 days, we cannot jump to a conclusion that a person is a non-resident. We have to also check second condition. But let us say if in any question it is given that a person stayed in India during the previous year for 59 days. What will be the residential status of that person? Automatically non-resident. Why? Because he stayed for less than 60 days. He stayed for less than 60 days. Even though he stayed for more than 365 days during the 4 years immediately preceding the previous year, still he will not be a resident because one of the sub-conditions in condition number 2 is not satisfied. So very important point to note and remember here. In condition number 2, both of them have to be satisfied. What are those both? What are those both conditions? Within the condition number 2. First of all, that person should be in India for a period of more than or equal to 60 days in the previous year, plus and he should be in India for more than or equal to 365 days in 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. In that case, we will say such person as a resident. If not, we will call that person as non-resident. So, 182 days is one condition. This two conditions put together is second condition. More than 60 days plus more than 365 days in 4 years. Put together it is second condition. If any one of these two basic conditions is satisfied, then he is a resident. If both the above conditions are not satisfied, both the conditions, then that individual is a non-resident. This is the determination of residency status of individual, whether he is a resident or non-resident. Very important, section 6.1. Now moving on to some of the additional points to be noted here, important aspect. Additional points are always like twist points, because sometimes these can be given as additional information where we might get confusion. Should it be included or not? What happens in this case? What happens in that case? Such kind of doubts will come. In order to clarify such things, these additional points or notes are given. These are also equally important as provisions, since these are tested in the examinations as twist points. What is the importance of them and what are the areas we have to focus on them? Let us see them in these notes. The term stay in India here, we are talking about the person should stay in India, he should have been in India, includes what? Includes stay in the territorial waters also. We know this already. Why? Because India includes territorial waters of India. We know the definition of India already is inclusive of territorial waters. And what is territorial waters? That also we discussed earlier, that is 12 nautical miles into the sea from the Indian coastline. So the point is to note here, just for example, even if somebody stays in a ship or a boat moored in the territorial waters of India, would be sufficient to make an individual resident in India. So if somebody is having a boat within 12 nautical miles of the Indian coastline and he has never touched the Indian land, he was in the water only, he was in the boat only. There itself, let us say he has stayed for 185 days. Enough. That person becomes resident in India. He cannot say I didn't even touch the land. All those things will not matter. Law is law. As per law, what is India? India includes territorial waters. That is why when a person has his physical presence in the territorial waters also, still it will be called as if that person is in India only. So stay in India means that. In simple words, stay includes territorial waters, or in other words, India includes territorial waters, which already we know, nothing new in that. But look at point number B. It is not necessary that the period of stay must be continuous. Is there any rule like that? 182 days we talked, like 60 days we talked, 365 days we talked. These are all numbers we are talking about, number of days. What is 182? Number of days, 60 days, 365 days. Are these all days to be continuous? Is there any rule like that? Absolutely no. There is no rule like that. This period of stay need not be continuous. There is no necessity that the period of stay must be continuous or active, nor is it essential that the stay should be at the usual place of residence, business or employment of the individual. Another question comes, where he is staying, does it matter? Let us say in the 182 days, he stayed in Mumbai for 10 days, he stayed in Delhi for another 40 days. Like that, he stayed in different places. Do we care about all that? Does it matter? Answer is no. Is there anything that he has to stay at a place of residence or business or employment? Is there any rule like that? Nothing like that is there. There is no need, there is no necessity that stay should be at one place. He can be 182 days in 182 different places. We don't care. Once again, we have to just go back to the definition very clearly. What was the definition talking about? It was only using the word India. And we know the definition of India, which is very exhaustive. So, wherever in India doesn't matter. There is no need that the stay has to be at one place. Same way, there is no need that the stay has to be continuous. There is no need that the stay has to be continuous. And India includes territorial waters also, that we know already. And no need that stay has to be continuous, no need that stay has to be at one place. That is another point to note. And a very important point in computations, which will be useful for us in solving the problems, is point number C. For the purpose of counting the number of days stayed in India, both the date of departure as well as date of arrival are considered to be in India. Very important point. So, this 182 days, 60 days, 365 days, whenever we are calculating the number of days of stay in India, should it be inclusive of the day of departure and arrival or not is the question. Answer is yes, they should be inclusive. They should be included. They are also considered. What are all considered? Date of departure as well as date of arrival. Both are to be included while calculating the number of days of stay in India. Imagine somebody has come on, say, 30th of April 2019 during our previous year, 1920. 30th April 2019, somebody has come to India. The flight has landed in the midnight around, say, morning, let us say, around 2 a.m. That is before even sunrise. But date has changed already. And the date has changed already. That means the date of arrival is 30th April. So should that 30th April be considered as if he stayed in India or not? Answer is yes. That should be considered as if he stayed in India only. Same way, somebody would have departed, let us say on 30th April. He stayed in India on 30th April or not? Though he stayed for only 2 hours, actually speaking, but that will be considered as a full day. Since the departure happened, let us say at 2 a.m. in the morning, technically speaking, on that day, he stayed in India for 2 hours only. But still that will be considered as one day. We don't care about that particular time of arrival and departure. Time of arrival and departure also will be important in cases where they are possible to be noted. Yes, there is a possibility of knowing the time of arrival and departure of a person. However, if we go into deep understanding of those things, it will all cause chaos, naturally. When we talk about law, law has to be understood like law. When we enter into the real application actually in the airports, then that is a chaos that nobody can really give answers to for certain imaginary situations. Sir, what if somebody gets down the flight, but he just stays in the washroom for 5 hours till the day changes, and then he comes to immigration department, and on the passport, when the stamp of arrival has been stamped, the date has already changed. How do we know that? We cannot know that. We cannot stop people from bathrooms. Not possible. So all those nonsensical thoughts can be there, but those are not going to be valid in law. As far as law is concerned, simply on record what is the date of arrival, on record what is the date of departure, that's what we matter. Before that, what they did they really come to immigration straight from the flight or not? A lot of people will be there practically as persons knowing how the travel happens internationally. Not necessarily that by the time a person actually lands in the airport and he goes to the immigration, not necessarily that the time period is negligible. Sometimes there are instances, this could be days also. We don't have to go into all those things. It's a simple point. As far as law is concerned, as far as Income Tax Act is concerned, what is our important point? What should we focus on is, should the date of arrival and the date of departure be considered? Answer is yes, they should be considered also as if they are in India. Should we worry about the number of hours? Answer is no. We don't have to worry about the number of hours of stay. We are bothered about the number of, which one? Days of stay. We are not bothered about the number of hours here. We are talking about number of days. Even if somebody stayed for 1 minute also, that is considered as one day. Even if somebody stayed for 1 hour also, it is considered as one day. So we don't worry about time here in minutes and hours. We consider the time here only in number of days. That is enough for us. Going more into deep, Yes, there will be a lot of practical implications, but that will only cause confusion to us without giving any clarity. As far as problem solving and understanding the provision is concerned, 99% cases will be only counting of number of days. And while counting the number of days, day of arrival and day of departure both should be included. That is a point we should note. Next point, already we discussed this yesterday. The residence of an individual as per income tax or as per Income Tax Act for income tax purposes has nothing to do with citizenship. So citizenship and residential status both are completely different. So place of birth, place of domicile, all these things do not matter. What is the citizenship of a person do not matter. That has nothing to do with residential status. So residence is different, citizenship is different. So for example, an individual can be resident in more countries than one, even though he can have only one domicile or one citizenship. So normally any person is a citizen of one country, but can he be resident of many countries? Quite possible. And we don't care about other countries. What are the residential status provisions in Germany? We don't care. Why do we care? Are we learning Germany income tax? No, we don't care. But what we are caring about, what is our interest? Our interest is Indian Income Tax Act. So what is residential status according to Indian Income Tax Act? Yes, that is what we are supposed to know. We are supposed to know that a person is resident if he stayed in India for 182 days or more during the previous year, or if he stayed in India for 60 days or more during the previous year and 365 days or more during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year, then that person is called as a resident. If he does not satisfy any of the above conditions, he is called as non-resident. That we should know. All others we don't need to know about other countries' residential statuses. If anybody satisfies these conditions, simply he is a resident in India. We don't care about the citizenship of that person, we don't care about the place of birth or domicile of that person. It all other things become immaterial. And already some of you are assuming that residence means taxable. Did we talk about that? Are we talking about that? No. We are not talking about taxability now. That will come later. First, when we are saying a person is a person, that means he is a person only. You cannot automatically say he is an SSE. When a person becomes an SSE, he is an SSE only. That does not mean incomes that he is earning is taxable. When an SSE is there who is having some income to be taxed in India and his residential status is, let us say we are talking about a resident, to that extent only, that means he is resident. So step by step only the things will come. But mostly what happens, the brain will tell us, once anybody is a person, we talk about the last step of taxability and tax liability. That is not the case. Various steps are there. Somebody has to be a person first, that person has to be a resident or non-resident or some other person whose income is subject to tax in India, means there should be tax incidence of that income earned by such person. Then it becomes a taxable income. Then there is some income tax payable by him. Then only he becomes an SSE. So any individual definition by itself will not tell us anything beyond that definition. If we say what is a person, we are only talking about who is a person. That's it. We should restrict it to that level. If we are talking about who is an SSE, we are talking about who is an SSE. That's it. We should restrict there. We cannot imagine and apply those things to 100 different places. When we are talking about now who is a resident, that's it. Only we are talking about who is a resident. What are the implications of that? That will come later. Now we will not understand them. By knowing who is a resident or who is a non-resident, directly we will not know the implications. Implications is the second part. That is what we call tax incidence. Now what is our job? Before knowing the implications, carefully and accurately calculating the residential status of an individual. And how to do that? We have to check the number of days of stay of that person in India and check these both basic conditions, whether they are satisfied or not. If they are satisfied, any one of them, then he is a resident. If both the conditions are not satisfied, then that individual is a non-resident. That's it. That is the basic determination of residential status of individuals. However, as usual, after telling everything, we'll use the word however. However means there is an exception here. There are exceptions here. So there are categories of people. There are two categories here we are talking about. They will be treated as a resident in India only if the period of stay during the relevant previous year is 182 days. In other words, In other words, for the people we are going to talk about now, second condition is not applicable at all. We should not check second condition for them. Only condition is first condition we should check. First condition is what? 182 days or more. So for the following categories of people, they will become resident only and only if the number of days of stay during the previous year is 182 days. Dot. The other things automatically is inferred. In other words, even if they were in India for 60 days or more, even if they were there for 365 days or more during the 4 years, still it doesn't matter because second condition is not applicable for the following cases. Once again, for the following cases, second condition is not applicable at all. You should not even check that. What should be checked? Directly, 182 days or more. Yes, resident. No, non-resident. Full stop. No further condition, no additional condition, no second condition to be checked in those cases. Simply, we have to check whether that person has stayed in India for 182 days or more. Then only they become resident. If not, automatically non-resident. So here we can confidently say if any person stayed for, let us say, less than 182 days. In the following cases, what will be the residential status? Non-resident. For the earlier cases, we could not have told that confidently because there is still another possibility for him to become resident. Here, that possibility is not there. Here, point number 2 or condition number 2 is not applicable for such type of individuals. Understand the conditions very carefully. Each word is important. And most important thing here is Indian citizen. And who are the exceptional category people here? First exceptional category person is Indian citizen, not anybody. Only Indian citizen. And what kind of Indian citizen? Who is leaving India during the relevant previous year as a member of the crew of another point. Indian ship. Indian ship, he is a crew member and he is leaving India as a member of the crew of Indian ship. If that is the case, then condition number 1 only has to be checked in relation to his residential status. Condition number 2 is not applicable. Or not only that, for the purpose of employment outside India. If he is leaving India, what is he doing is, he is leaving India during the relevant previous year. Each word is important. During when? The relevant previous year. And who is that guy? Indian citizen. Normally, naturally, we are all talking about individuals only. Indian citizen who is leaving India during the relevant previous year as a member of crew of Indian ship or for the purpose of employment outside India. Imagine somebody got a job abroad during the previous year. And in order to join in that job, that person is leaving India in the previous year. So what should happen? We should check only 182 days condition. We should not check the second condition. So is he falling in the exceptional category? Yes, if that person is Indian citizen. So that is the first exception here. Or if you want to call these 2 points, that is also okay because there is one person who is a member of crew of Indian ship. There is another person who is leaving for the purpose of employment outside India. But both of them are doing one thing common. They are leaving India. And when they are leaving India, during the relevant previous year. And who are they? They are Indian citizens. So if any Indian citizen is leaving India as a member of crew of Indian ship or for the purpose of employment outside India, then nothing happens. Nothing great happens. Only thing what happens is, second condition is not applicable for them. Only they become resident if they stayed in India for 182 days or more. If they stayed in India less than 182 days, automatically they become non-residents. So residential status of such persons exceptionally is determined by checking only first condition. Second condition is not applicable for them at all. That is why they are exceptions, right? Exceptions, these are very important. So we have to always keep in mind whether a person, in our case, in the problems that are given to us, belonging to a normal category or exceptional category. We have to keep on tracking that. For that, we need to check these conditions carefully. Is that person an Indian citizen? Yes. Then only we have to look at. Is he leaving India? Yes. Then only exception. Is he leaving India during the relevant previous year? Yes. Then only exception. As a what? As a member of crew of Indian ship is he leaving? Or even if he is leaving for the purpose of employment outside India, still he falls under exceptional category. That is first exception to the general category. Then there is another exception here. This is also important one. What is another exception here is Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin. There is one more added here. Here there is only Indian citizen. There is no person of Indian origin. Here there is Indian citizen as well as a person of Indian origin. Who is a person of Indian origin? We'll come to that. That will be given in the note number 1. But first of all, the name you have to remember. PIO, that is called person of Indian origin or an Indian citizen. What is he doing? He is engaged outside India in an employment or business or profession or in any other vocation. So we don't care. Means everything is there, no? Employment, business or any other vocation is there. Means he is outside India basically. Don't worry about the other things. Where is this guy normally? Normally he is outside India. Now what is he doing? He is coming on a visit to India during the relevant previous year. So these two categories are completely opposite in direction when it comes to travel. If you observe carefully, the first category of exception is leaving India. They are not coming to India. They are basically staying normally in India. They are all Indian citizens. Normally their place is India, but now during the previous year they are leaving India. Why? Possibilities. One, as a member of crew of Indian ship or for the purpose of employment. So this guy, the first category of exception, is leaving India. They are not coming to India. They are going away from India. Second category is different. Second category of persons are Indian citizens or person of Indian origin. Normally they are outside India. Normally they are not in India. In general they are outside India, but what they are doing during the previous year, they are coming to India. They are coming to India on a visit. Once again, don't give your own imaginary meanings to visit. Visit does not mean they have to come to Taj Mahal, they have to come to tourists only, tourist spots, nothing like that. Visit is a visit, not according to our whims and fancies. Visit means they are coming to India, that's all. They are not coming back permanently to stay in India. Because normally they stay outside India. They are basically Indian citizens or persons of Indian origin. Normally they stay outside India, but during the previous year, they are coming to India for a visit. That's it. If that is the case, then also condition number 2 is not applicable for them. Only condition number 1 is applicable. Means they will be residents only if they stayed in India during the previous year for 182 days or more. Then only. So, but what is the condition there? These people should be normally outside India and they should be either Indian citizens or persons of Indian origin, and they should be visiting India during the previous year. Then we can say they are also falling under exceptional category. So these are the two exceptional categories. Otherwise, normally the residency status of any individual is calculated by using these two basic conditions: whether a person is staying in India for 182 days or more or not, whether a person is staying in India for 60 days or more and 365 days or more during 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. According to that, residency status is determined. Whereas for these exceptional categories, two exceptional categories, Indian citizens leaving India as a member of crew of Indian ship or for the purpose of employment, Indian citizen or person of Indian origin who are basically outside India but who are now visiting to India during the previous year. In these both cases, second condition is not applicable. Only first condition is applicable. First condition is what? 182 days or more is applicable. That's it. That is exceptional cases. Now there is a special case here, particularly related to Indian citizen who is a crew member. See, we don't have to be really worrying about what is a ship, how that will be, and what will be doing it, and all these words which are all there. It's going on a voyage outside India. All these things are there. A lot of practical things. If at all we observe them near ports, we will be able to understand them more clearly. Practically speaking, for our exam purposes and understanding purposes, we don't care about those things. So we don't need to worry about each and every word that is given here. These are all useful in real life, but essence is important for us. What is important here? What is the problem? What is this entire thing is talking about? This is about how to determine the period of stay in India for an Indian citizen who is a crew member. And crew member of what? Basically, he is a crew member of a foreign bound ship leaving India. So it's a foreign bound ship. Voyage is outside India, means the travel where that ship is going to be outside India. And we are not, once again, to be interested in all those things. We should be interested straight to the provision. How we have to calculate the period of stay. How should we calculate the period of stay? Here there is an important word that is used, that is called continuous discharge certificate. So let us use this word, that is continuous discharge certificate, very important word. How to calculate the period of stay depends upon the continuous discharge certificate. So imagine that. What is that? We don't know. I never traveled in any ship ever. I was never a member of crew of neither Indian ship also nor foreign ship also. And I'm sure most of you also would not have traveled. So we don't know all this nonsense. So we just have to understand the essence of it. We don't know how this foreign bound ships will go, how they will start, where they will travel. All these things we don't know. We don't need to know. Point is simple. There is something called continuous discharge certificate. What is that? Imagine it is like a register, like a attendance register. When somebody, and are we talking about a passenger here? No, sir, please. That we should know. Are we talking about a passenger here? No. We are talking about a crew member. He is a guy who is a crew member. Means he is the staff. Crew means staff, member of the ship. And he is an Indian citizen basically, who is a staff member of a ship which is going outside India and a foreign bound ship. That's all. In that case, how to calculate the number of days of stay in India? Why this question comes first of all, as we know already, when the ships are there in the territorial waters also, still it is considered as good as they are in India. But practically speaking, if you observe, lot of times it so happens that there will be lot of waiting time for the ships in the territorial waters before they can be actually docked and people can come out of them. So a lot of time, sometimes even number of days also, weeks also, they will be staying in the territorial waters waiting to enter into the port itself. In that all period of time, should that be also counted as period of stay in India is the question. Normally yes, because territorial waters is India, no doubt about it. But we are talking about whom? Not everybody. We are talking about a particular person. Which type of person? Who is an Indian citizen, that too who is a crew member. And in that case, crew member means not as a passenger, he is a staff of the ship, staff of the voyage. So in that case, how to calculate the period of stay, and what is he talking about? We are talking about the period to be excluded. Which period to be excluded? We have to see. The period commencing from the date entered into in the continuous discharge certificate in respect of joining the ship by the said individual for the eligible voyage. So means, imagine there is attendance register. He has entered his name into the continuous discharge certificate saying that he has joined the ship. That is the time when the countdown starts, as if he has left India. But did the ship really leave India? Answer is no. Physically, did he leave? Did the ship left India? No, it did not. Not necessarily. We don't need to know that. So what we consider as the person has left India, for this person only, not for everybody, only for this person. And who is this person? The person who is an Indian citizen as a member of crew of the ship leaving India, which is a foreign bound ship. Once again, we are not talking about ships going from Chennai to Gujarat and all that. No, we are not talking about them. We are talking about the ships which are foreign bound ships where the voyage is outside India, and the person we are talking about is an Indian citizen who is also not a traveler, he is a crew of the ship. If that is the case, the period of stay between these two dates shall be excluded. So when that exclusion will start? Exclusion will start on the date when his name is entered into in the continuous discharge certificate. That means he has left India as good as. Really, no sir, no, all those things will not matter. As good as he has left India, the moment his name is entered in continuous discharge certificate. Then, till what time? Till the time he signing off. He is signing off. So if that person is signing off, means coming out of that same continuous discharge certificate. Between these two dates, whatever the time period is, that time period should be excluded from the period of stay in India, even though this could be in territorial waters of India, we don't care. Even though this is really in India, as per our regular definition of India is concerned, even in that case, that is why we are particularly, specially talking about them. This is not general thing, very explanatory and special thing that is going in this case because of the notification also issued by CBDT, whatever the rules are those. We don't need about all of that. What we need to know is conditions. One, this person is an Indian citizen. Okay, fine. And who is that guy? He is a crew member of a ship which is going for a voyage which is outside India. Dot. In that case, which period should be excluded from the period of stay in India? Which period should be excluded? The period entered in between the periods of where his name is entered in the continuous discharge certificate till he signs off from that ship. Till that time, as good as he has left India. So he is leaving India and coming back. Imagine, when he has left India, then there is no other documentary proof. What is the documentary proof? Continuous discharge certificate. When can we say that he has entered India once again? When he has signed off that continuous discharge certificate. So understand this very carefully. He is entering his name in continuous discharge certificate means he has left India. He has left continuous discharge certificate or he has left the ship means, or he has signed off the continuous discharge certificate means he has entered India. He is in ship means he is not in India. He is in India means he is not in the ship. That is what we have to understand. India and ship are not same. But are we talking physical things here? No. Physically he might be in ship also. That we don't care. We cannot track that. What is the proof here? Proof is documentary, not real. What is the document called? Continuous discharge certificate. So the moment his name is entered in continuous discharge certificate, that person is deemed to have left India. The moment he has signed off from that continuous discharge certificate, that person is deemed to have entered India. That's it. When did he put his leg on the land? Did he touch the land or did he kiss the land like Indra and all those things we don't care. That is none of our business. Our point is whether document is there called continuous discharge certificate. If he has signed in that means he has left India. If he has signed out of that means he has entered India. In between time where he is in the ship. Is that ship moving? We don't care. Is it in the territorial waters? We don't care. All those things do not matter. For this person, will the same rule apply to non-Indian citizens? No, sir. This is only applicable for Indian citizens. That's all. So be very clear about this exception. Only for Indian citizens. This continuous discharge certificate is a very important word. If it is given in the questions, we should be very crucially identifying this name called continuous discharge certificate. Eligible voyage and all, we don't need to know that. Now look at this example. This gives us a very clear understanding of how this provision of Indian citizen, crew, all these things can be understood. Illustration number 1 in the ICAI material. Read it carefully. Read any question carefully. Then only we can come to conclusions applying the provisions we know. Mr. Anand is an Indian citizen and a member of the crew of a Singapore-bound Indian ship. Okay, engaged in carriage of passengers. We don't care. In international traffic departing from Chennai port. We don't care. Whichever port from India. India is important enough. This is important. Date on 6th June 2019 that ship was supposed to go. That generally is important. However, from the following details for the previous year 1920, determine the residence status of Anand for the assessment year 2021, assuming that his stay in India for the past 4 years preceding the previous year is 400 days. First of all, does it matter for him? Answer is no. Why? Because he is an Indian citizen and he is as a member of crew. He is leaving India during the previous year. So he first of all falls under the exceptional category here. This one, exceptional category, that too Indian ship he is going in. So clearly it was mentioned in this case, this ship is Indian ship. This is an Indian ship. So naturally for an Indian citizen who is going away from India in an Indian ship as a crew member, second condition is not applicable. So 4 years immediately preceding the previous year, 365 days, this is absolutely useless. This is useless information. Just like that you will give. Unnecessarily will fall in trap by wasting time on that information. So just ignore it. Doesn't matter because for him Only first condition is applicable, second condition is not applicable. And what is the first condition? He will be called as a resident if that person is in India for a period of 182 days or more, dot. Otherwise, he is not called as a resident, he becomes a non-resident. 4 years immediately preceding, more than 365 days, all these things we don't care, since the second condition is not applicable for him. 7 years and all is not relevant in this particular case. We have not yet reached to that point yet. But let us look at the other particulars given. Date entered into the continuous discharge certificate in respect of joining the ship. Means when he joined the ship, 6th June 2019, he joined the ship. So point once again to be noted. 6th June 2019, he has joined the ship, means he has left India on that day. So he has joined the ship. And on 9th December 2019, he has left the ship. That is called signing off. He has signed off the ship in the continuous discharge certificate on 9th December 2019. Understand this very carefully and logically. What is his period of stay outside India? And what is his period of stay in India? His period of stay outside India is the period between these two dates, because he is in the ship between these two dates. So he is not in India. This is the period to be excluded from the period of stay. That's what is mentioned here. That is the period. So means what? From April to 6th June, actually 5th June, he is in India. From 10th December onwards also, again he is in India. Between 6th June and 9th December, he is not in India. So now we have to calculate very carefully how many number of days he was in the ship and how many number of days he is not in the ship, means he is in India. That can be calculated very easily. Look at the number of days where he was in the ship. Look at this. Starting from, say, 6th June. So starting from 6th June to be included also in that? Yes. That should be also included. Means how many days in June? In June, 25 days. Then July, then August, then September, then October, then November. Once again in December, 9 days he was in the ship. That should be also included in the period of stay in the ship, not in India. So still all these total number of days, how many days it will become? That is going to be 187 days. Once again, 187 days did he stay in India or outside India? He stayed outside India, because he stayed in the ship for this 187 days. Means how many days he stayed in India? We don't need to once again calculate. April 30 days, May 31 days, 5 days in June. Not necessarily. Even if you calculate like that also, it is okay. But one is enough, no? Automatically the remaining thing will come out. So automatically, how many number of days he would have stayed in India? 366 days we have in this year. Remember that. Why? Because it is a leap year. We are talking about previous year 2019-20. So 20 February is a month where there are 29 days. So instead of 365 days, there will be 366 days minus 187 days where he has stayed outside India, which means 179 days this person, Mr. Anand, has stayed in India, which is less than 182 days. So what is his residency status? Automatically, residency status is non-resident. Somebody might say, sir, he stayed for more than 60 days and stayed for more than 365 days in the 4 years immediately preceding the previous year. No? Means he has satisfied the second condition. No? Then the answer should be, yes, he satisfied second condition, but it is not applicable for him because he falls in exceptional category, not under normal category. As an Indian citizen and as he is going outside India as a crew member of an Indian ship, he falls under exceptional category. So second condition is not applicable for him. Basically, only first condition is applicable for him, which means how many days he stayed in India should be at least 182 days. Whereas he stayed in India only for 179 days. Means he is a non-resident automatically. That is the position, and we have to write this here as a note also. Since the residency status of Anand is non-resident, whatever the number of days earlier, previous years, that becomes irrelevant. 7 years he was there, 4 years he was there, all those things become irrelevant. So the data will be given, though it will be not useful for actually determining the residential status. So we need to identify what is useful data and what is a useless data also. That is about application of this exceptional case in relation to an Indian citizen as a member of crew of an Indian ship who falls in this exceptional category. And even if he is not a member of crew of an Indian ship, if he is going outside India as a voyage, then for a foreign bound ship, in that case, that should be in relation to the period that this person has entered in the continuous discharge certificate, which should be excluded from the total period of stay in India. So what is a continuous discharge certificate? Which is just general definition. Don't try to even remember all these things. These are useless things. Know the names. Continuous discharge certificate is the name you should remember. What is it? Merchant shipping means what? What is seafarer? What is this boat moored means? Lot of things will be there. All those things are general knowledge. If you are interested, go to dictionary. If you are not interested, just leave them. So these are all not to be focused upon. Just to know them, it's okay. Nothing wrong in knowing anything. But if you are interested more in them, not in the provision, then that's a problem. That should not be the case, is what I am warning you. And what is it? What is an eligible voyage? That also is just mentioned, where it is a ship taking in the carriage of passengers or freight. So what else is there, sir? What else will be there? Voyage means either ship will take passengers or freight. So both are covered here. So don't worry about them. There is no specific condition that we have to really look at, which is eligible, which is not eligible. So don't worry about this eligible voyage. Mostly what you have to remember is continuous discharge certificate. And very important point, condition here, very important condition is this person, whoever we are talking about, whether under the exceptional category or for the purpose of calculation of this continuous discharge certificate number of days, we are talking about Indian citizen only. That is a very crucial condition. That has to be looked at. That is one application of this. Of course, there is another exception where an Indian citizen leaves India during the relevant previous year for the purpose of employment outside India also. That also falls under exceptional category, but there is no continuous discharge certificate and all. Don't talk about continuous discharge certificate in every case. That word is used only for ships, not for anything else. So that is an exceptional case, a particular case only. Don't use it everywhere, wherever we can use. And a person who is already an Indian citizen or a person of Indian origin, normally staying outside India, visits to India during the previous year also falls under exceptional category. And within that, a special case of how to calculate the number of days of stay in India for a person who is leaving on a eligible voyage is given separately, where the continuous discharge certificate matters and the number of days of stay in India in that case will be excluded by the period of stay which are between the entering of the name of that person in continuous discharge certificate and the date entered of by signing off the ship in the continuous discharge certificate. Like that you can calculate. And otherwise, this particular problem can be solved otherwise also, because when he is in ship, he is not in India. When he is not in ship, he is in India. So how many days he is in India, you can calculate that separately. Maybe you can all just take the calculators and do that. Let us say he has entered in on 6th June into the ship by entering in continuous discharge certificate. Our previous year starts from April. So April has 30 days. So 30 plus 30 he was in India only. April he was in India only, not in the ship. May 31, June 5 days, because 6th day he was already in the ship because he entered in the continuous discharge certificate. June to December is gone. Where is he? We don't care. It doesn't matter. But when he came back to India, 9th he has signed off, but from when he will be considered as if he is in India, that will be starting from 10th of December. So when it is 10th of December onwards, how many days? If within December there will be from 31 days, if you exclude 9 days, 31 minus 9 means 22 days. Add that also, December. Then January, February 29, then March 31. So total number of days in India is 179. Like that also you can calculate. Ultimately what matters is you calculate correctly. So how many days he is outside India? 187 days. How many days he is in India? 179 days, which is less than 182 days. Since he is staying in India for a period of less than 182 days in the previous year, his residency status is that of a non-resident. That's it. That is the checking of basic conditions whether a person is a resident in India or not. So this is very important to first of all understand the essence of the residential status determination and the conditions to be checked for identifying a person whether he is a resident or not. Once this is understood, we can take it forward by knowing whether this person is a resident but resident and ordinary resident, whether this person is resident but not ordinary resident. This area we will discuss in the next class. Basically, whether a person is resident or non-resident will be determined for an individual in this way, as we discussed it today, checking of two conditions with two exceptions also. And once a person is a resident, then only we will check further whether he is ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. How to do that checking, we will discuss it in the next class. Once we have that also, then only it makes sense to really do some problems on determination of residential status. Why? Because once again I am telling you, if you just tell residential status of an individual as resident, it has no meaning. You have to tell resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, then that is residential status. Resident is not a residential status. Non-resident is a residential status. Or ROR is a residential status. RNOR is a residential status, but not R. Just saying resident is not enough. Whenever the dates are given, whenever the data is given, finally individuals or HF will have three possible residential statuses: resident and ordinarily resident, resident but not ordinarily resident, and non-resident. Till we reach that level, we have to keep on checking the conditions. Just by saying that a person is resident is not enough. That's what we should understand. But that is definitely the beginning. Without knowing a person is resident, we cannot understand whether he is ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident. Such discussion on whether a person is called as an ordinarily resident or not ordinarily resident will continue in the next class. Till then, take care. Bye bye. Thank you very much.